Hello, everyone. It's Lumen and Sam. How are you doing, Sam?
Hey, Lemon. Good. How are you?
Good. Yeah. So we both hit a bit of a rough patch in our current Agricola, but no reason to suspect that that's a long-term trend at all. Uh,
Oh, yes. Mine is still related to learning. I forgot Loom required two occupations and kind of screwed
oh
up my last
man,
move in the game.
that's a bummer for sure. Yeah, I guess I we were talking a bit before I started recording about what to do today, and I actually forgot to mention something. So this is just on the spot. Do you have anything you want to add for the people watching on YouTube now that we've got a few episodes out?
Yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone who's subbed to both our channels, I guess. Well, probably mine because they're already subbed to yours.
Well,
Um,
I don't know. I think my metrics are somewhere around 50 or 60% subscription views for this series so far.
oh wow. Um, yeah, I guess it would be extremely painful watching for a lot of experienced players the first couple of videos, but I think I'm at a watchable level now. Hopefully.
I mean, we were very clear from the onset that you were a beginner there. So I think if people are cringing or finding it hard to watch, that's on them, not
Oh,
us.
I found it hard to watch. Some of the early decisions were very questionable.
All right. So we've got a game to review, but as you mentioned before we started recording, for continuity's sake, we talked through a reevaluation of the CD occupations at the end of last week, and we could do the improvements here.
Yeah, I'm up for that.
Okay, let me. All right, shared my screen on your Discord call there.
Yep.
And zoom in a bit. Okay.
Okay. Play supports as number one is one I don't fully understand. I get the amount of resource that saves you, but the timing of it seems very weird.
Right, and this was uh, a thing, or possibly a result of, as I said last time, wanting the context of this list to be um, based on all expansions instead of just the current system or the arena size or arena
Right.
settings. Fit to data is not going to work out. I'm just OCDing over the spreadsheet a little here. Uh, so
So you're saying there's better support in expansions? I just
yes,
haven't seen the full power of it.
exactly, because you want something to renovate early. So if you're renovating in round two, I think it's pretty clear how clay supports could be powerful.
Okay, yeah.
And there are a decent number of cards that allow that.
So Cottager is still like the only one for early renos, right?
Right, for base set plus CD.
Yeah.
So yeah, clay support's probably not the top for the arena setup here, but still very good. You can absolutely just win games if you get clay supports with some support, or with no pun intended, like furnisher or bricklayer or something like that. You can get really crazy really fast.
Yeah, the bricklayer combo would be quite nice, I can see.
Yeah. Let's see. The next couple here: swing plow and bookshelf. I mean, yeah, very, very good.
Wing
Uh,
plow, very obvious. Bookshelf. Well, I didn't realize bookshelf was that high actually.
okay, so
Yeah, 12 food. Yeah, I can see.
right. I mean, it's often not going to be 12 food, but even if it's 3 food, you got a point in 3 food out of a wood
Yeah, that's really good actually.
as like a floor. So, and in general, something that makes it more enticing to play occupations, I think is generally going to improve your game. Because occupations, like, they have effects, right? Kind of stating the obvious there, but the more effects you add to your game, the better you're going to do.
Yep, that's logical.
Potter ceramics, if I needed to put something at number 1 that I'm always drafting in the arena setup, it might be Potter ceramics.
I can see that because it's a free miner, so it's one that you can play at any time or early.
Right.
And yeah, just a clay for a grain is a great exchange.
Yeah, basically you're baking a clay. And I think the real thing that makes this super strong is that there are 6 baking cards in the arena setup.
I'll trust you on that.
Because in addition to the 3 from the base game, there's Flail, Baker, and Steam Machine.
Yeah.
And I might even be forgetting one. There's a lot of baking support, so it's not too hard to find some clay additions to the game. Sometimes you'll strike out and you won't find any bake help, but you know, with 6 or more baking cards in the set of 200, it's pretty likely you'll see at least one of them.
The more I'm playing as well, the more I'm finding baking to be a much more effective feeding engine than hearth. Do you find that to be the case?
It might be a bit of small sample size because you might get a few games in a row that have a lot of grain or clay or baking support.
That's definitely possible, but like I'm finding hearth. It's hard to like get all the animals and then have to eat them all and then not grow them. Like trading away a grain just seems much more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, in general, if you can find strong grain source or sources plus bake helpers, that's definitely going to be a strong game, food-wise.
Yeah. I need to get the oven more often.
Field fences, I think, is very strong. I think putting it top 5 is fair.
Just free wood.
Yeah, I mean, it saves you a full fencing action, and it's, I don't know, 2 to 3 or maybe even 4 wood sometimes. So it's very hard to go wrong with that for the cost of 2 food.
Especially,
fences is like a premium action in the middle and late game, right? And
especially in the late game where it's like heavily contested in some games.
Right. So to be able to, like, instead of taking a very contested late game action, take start player and also do that premium action, that's like crazy. So and save 2 wood. Like, if this was free and didn't give you wood, I think it would still be an A tier miner.
Okay. Yeah. Need to rate that one higher in my internal game.
Yeah. Woodfield, I have to admit, I'm a bit too high on here. But I also think that people still sleep on a point for a food at worst. Like, at worst, this is a very good deal, I think.
Yeah, if you do get a couple of wood out of it, it's a bonus.
Right. So, probably closer to 12 or 15, but not as low as the 20s, and not as high as 6.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Milking stool, I mean, you could boost it a bit from here. The amount of cows in the revised game is higher than the amount of cows in the base game, or the original game, I should say, where milking stool was already very strong. But this is just loom for cows, of course, so...
and loom is extremely good. This is the same.
Right, so it doesn't have the printed point, but it costs a wood less, and, you know, now you're dealing with cows instead of sheep, and cows give you more points quicker, I guess I would say.
Yep.
Lettuce Patch. I'm so surprised that, Ryan and Chris would put Lettuce Patch in the top 10 and Woodfield in the 20s.
I'm surprised you put it under Woodfield, to be honest, because it's just like it's a free point.
Yeah, I was overrating how often you could sow wood on the Woodfield. I think I had a few games in playtest tournaments on Play Agricola when the C and D deck and even B deck were being released. And I had some really solid Woodfield games. So I think I had just a bit of a small sample bias towards Woodfield at the time. Lettuce Patch, yeah, obviously good. Free point. Gives you an awesome vegetable conversion for food. And there are some situations where you can play this like in the early game or mid game because of all the vegetable support that you can sometimes find. And then having this to help you feed in the mid game can be a monster.
Yep. So, well, in my opinion, it's just a better bean field.
Certainly that. Yeah, the only downside is it requires one more occupation.
Yeah.
Carrot Museum. I think my rating's fairly good here. The upside on Carrot Museum is obviously insane, and as I wrote in the notes, highest ceiling of any card in the set, really. The prereq is a bit annoying, the cost isn't easy, but, converting the wood and 2 clay to 2 points is, like, fair enough on its own as a trade you'd like to do. And then just to, some games you're going to get 2 or 3 wood back. And some games you're going to get, like, 4 wood and 4 stone back. And
that would be pretty good.
Yeah. Like, you can get such good value out of Carrot Museum. So, it's a very tricky one to rank. Because, like, how are you going to express its average value? Like, you're rarely getting its average value, so...
Yeah, the ratings are a bit weird to me. I would have it pretty high like you.
Okay. Yeah. I think Chris definitely would agree it's not bottom half. And...
I'm still interested by Ryan's rank.
Yeah, I wonder what he would put it these days. I don't think he's ever been a fan of, like, the timing issues of it, though. Like, the trickiness to play. Bookcase... I mean, very much like Carrot Museum, it fluctuates greatly on what you've got. I think it's very easy for a lot of players to play Bookcase too early before they can do anything with their vegetables. And then they've, like, spent room parts on this minor improvement. So I think it's really easy to accidentally throw your game away chasing Bookcase vegetables. But obviously, if you have Carrot Museum, for example, you should be chasing Bookcase vegetables. So, Schnap's Distiller, even a Cooking Hearth make Bookcase very solid. But unlike Bookshelf, you need to do work to make use out of these veggies, because obviously you're not going to eat these veggies raw.
Yeah, and there's no point on it either. Right. So I guess that's why it's kind of worse.
It costs an extra wood, too, on top of Bookshelf's 1 wood.
Yep.
So I like my rating here, but just like Carrot Museum, there are games when it will perform as like a top 1 or top 2 card, and there are games where you wish you never played it. So
I actually thought it was ranked higher than Bookshelf, but I obviously missed the point and the extra wood.
I think you can argue between them which one's stronger. My rating of Bookshelf higher than Bookcase is a little controversial in the community, and
okay.
I mean, obviously they're both amazing, right? But
I would pick either.
Yeah, I think Gray has said that in the specific arena set he barely prefers Bookcase, but I don't know if that's just him saying he'll draft for ceiling in the draft rather than something that's generically very good.
The Bookshelf is before you play the Ock, right?
Yes.
That's also super handy.
Right.
Well, so, can be.
I mean, yeah. definitely. Clay supply, I mean, I think is very good. Is there anything above this? I don't think so. Like, I can't move clay supply up really because it doesn't have a huge ceiling, but it's definitely very solid.
Is that just one you play like in the first round or two to get an early fireplace?
You can do that. Obviously, it's a great card to have in a late seat to just like let me get 3 clay and not be in this bad seat. But there's nothing wrong with like playing it on family growth when you don't really have anything else to play, and then you have half of your Reno parts. So I think there's just a lot of things you can do with the 3 clay.
Yeah,
Oftentimes, it saves a clay action whenever you're likely to play this. It might save an entire play action.
Can also be like your Reno clay if you have three rooms.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Turn rest plow. Very similar to mold board, except you get the fields at once, and you can use this on cultivation as well. I think it's fine here. Plows are obviously very good and sometimes rare, so it's expensive, but you're definitely getting value out of the 2 extra fields.
Well, it's just one wood action one good wood action for 2 extra fields, so I'm still okay with that.
Yep. You also have to take half an action to play turn rest plow, though. So.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, the net is not amazing, but the timing can be really great. Because, you don't have to spend the plow actions early. Lantern House is probably fine here. Maybe it's a little high. Like, maybe it should be rated a little lower than this. I haven't been super high on Lantern House recently with the new cards. And I actually don't remember how highly I was picking Lantern House in the arena games.
Tricky to pull off. Well, you still generally play a lot of your cards, so it's nearly always going to be at net positive points.
Right. It's just that opening the game with 3 wood followed by start player is okay, but it's not anything amazing. It forces your opening line a bit. I've said before that you can go resource market 2 wood from an early seat and then play Lantern House in round 2, but then you're not going to be able to play an occupation early in round 2, and if you have early occupations, this isn't that great timing wise. But yeah, high ceiling. So
7 points is still a lot to add to your ceiling.
Yep. Truffle Slicer I have rated too highly. It's kind of awkward to get it in play with a pig early enough. And a lot of good games, you're only going to want a couple more wood actions by the time you play Truffle Slicer.
Right, because it has to be in round 8 or later.
Right, and you want, if for example you got enough wood for a room and 15 fences by round 8, that's a good thing, right? You're not going to be like, oh darn, I can't do Truffle Slicer stuff. You're going to be like, yeah, I'm fencing now, suckers. Right?
Yeah, I mean, you can always use the wood, but yeah, having the boar and then paying the food as well is kind of awkward.
Right.
But I think it's still got quite good upside.
Yeah, it can be pretty good in a lot of situations, but those situations are rarer than I have it rated here. I think the other guys have good handle on the rating. Crosscut wood, I mean, obviously haven't been playing with the card since beta mode, but it's very game distorting and not necessarily easy to get a lot of wood off of it. High variance card.
I'm just thinking about the combo with Carrot Museum or something.
Yeah, I mean the big combo with it is Freemason.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Yeah, because you Freemason save up for 2 stone rooms, you have 10 stone, and by the way, here's a miner for 10 wood. Yeah.
That would lead to some very interesting games.
Yeah, for sure. You say
Interesting is
interesting,
one word.
I say busted, yeah. Carriage Trip, I think I have a fairly good rating on it, but this is also banned because it's extremely annoying.
Right, I was gonna say I haven't seen this called.
Yeah, the combo I didn't realize, like early on, and the combo that made me realize yes, this needs to be banned, is if you have furniture, you can build a room and play Carriage Trip on furniture to go to family growth immediately.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that's nice.
that doesn't seem right in the spirit of Agricola. So, yeah,
I can understand that would infuriate a lot of people.
right. Yeah, and it was already annoying enough if you don't think about that combo, because if you know it's in the game, you're constantly having to worry about the tactics someone can use on start player or growth if they involve Carriage Trip.
Mm,
And it passes
yeah.
around the table, so you like have to keep worrying about it for the entire game. Half Timbered House, I might have a little too low here. Um, Probably want to boost it up a tiny bit. There aren't too many super reliable sources of point ceiling in the set, and I think Half Timbered House is a good mix of playability and strength. The set has plenty of resource injection to build big houses with and get to stone with, so I think the relative ease of getting to a big stone house in the set makes Half Timbered quite good.
Okay. I can see the upside. It seems quite expensive.
Yes.
Well, I guess if you're getting 5 points out of it, it's a fair trade.
Right.
Well, even better than.
Right. And I don't know if you've noticed in your few arena games, but big houses seem easier to do, in my opinion, with this set.
They can be for sure. What other cards give bonus for stone houses? Is it
Yeah, that
the
clause is a little weird, but there's definitely more in the expansions. There's one in the new card set called Luxurious Hostel. I think that one is a
okay?
Stone House card. But I think there are more in the non-implemented cards, and I think there will be some if fan-made decks are ever published for this game.
Right.
Blueprint. I mean, I'm the lowest on it of the 3 raiders here, but I think it's probably a little worse than this. There's definitely nothing wrong with a free, like a 1 food cost, otherwise free minor improvement. But you can lose games by over focusing on trying to chase down those guilds.
I think even if you're getting 1 guild out of it, it's like 1 food for a stone and potentially taking it on a action space that you
Right,
want
half
to
an
take
action.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it can definitely, yeah. I think I've said for the most part that you don't want to stretch for anything when you play Blueprint, but just kind of take whatever you can get off of it. And I think that's still
Yeah.
true. So probably like mid-20s is a better rating for it.
Yeah, that's it.
Granary. I don't know if I took this card or used it as much as this rating.
I think the cost is a major turnoff.
Okay.
Like,
But the timing of playing it and then getting the grain, you don't really need the round 8 grain for it to be worth it, right? You can play this in round 9 and still be quite happy, I think.
Okay, so you're trading 3 clay for 2 grain and a point.
Right. And if
Hmm.
you're lucky, you got a bonus third grain out of it.
I have drafted it a bit. I just found it quite hard to pay the costs early enough.
Sure. Yeah, because if you want grain, then you're gonna want to have clay and spend clay on an oven or a hearth or something to bake with, and then you need 3 more for the greenery, and then you need 3 to renovate also. Um, but uh, there are some combos to make the cost easier: bricklayer or wood expert or lumber mill or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Can
How
make it.
often how often would you be paying wood instead of clay?
I would only try to pay wood if I had a discount, because clay is just
Fair.
that much weaker. But if you're, for example, building clay rooms, then wood might be the right choice. If you're building clay rooms, though, granary is quite expensive, so yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the cost can be an issue. So I don't know. My gut says that this should be rated a little worse, but I don't remember what's below this, so let's see. I guess. Uh, yeah, this should be a little lower.
I just saw
Maybe.
a writing desk there. I'm shocked.
Okay. Yeah, I think I underrated that one, but we'll get to it in a sec. Hutch and Chicken Coop, I do think should be rated very near Greenery and very near each other. They're basically the same card, in my opinion. For those who have studied economics, I think like if you time value discount the food on these two, it comes out pretty equal, and like the costs are equal almost, and there's so much equal about these cards.
Yes, I agree.
So they're solid, but you don't want to be sacrificing your room costs because they'll tempt you to do that.
Well, I guess Hutch is more mid-game friendly because it only needs 4 ground spaces.
Right, that's correct. That is true. Oh, and then how I would rate these now. I mean, if I'm dragging granary down by roughly 5, let's say these should be dragged down by 3 to 5 also.
Okay. Fishing net. I like fishing net. I like just getting a free food every once in a while and just denying other players the food.
Right, and well, I actually don't think of fishing net that way anymore. What I think of fishing net as is adding 2 food to fishing, and one of those food is going to be mine, and one of those food is going to be yours. Yours as like my opponents collectively. So
That's yeah,
it
that's a good
gives
way to
you
think about it.
half the benefit of what you're putting on the table, and you're making it more enticing like every round. So the read cost in practice gets a little annoying, in my opinion. It's obviously quite good when someone else is running a fishing combo to the point of relying on it, like Harpooner. Um, but I feel like I probably overrated it a little. So
Okay.
yeah, it's
I, I,
fine.
I
But
would have it. I would have it around early 20s.
okay, I think mid or late 20s is better for it. Maybe even 30. The playability I really haven't liked.
I had a funny game last night actually. I had fishing net out, and then another player had puppeteer out.
Whoa.
It was a quite a food short game, so there was constant bottom feeding, and of
Ooh.
course they all went to traveling players over fishing.
Oh no. Ugh. But traveling players wasn't getting boosted every so often.
Yeah, but no one wants to pay a food. People would rather get a food.
Fair, yeah. Psychological issues.
Yeah.
All right, Toad. I mean, it's either fine or slightly underrated here. I think. Um, I think the late game read is fine, and helps you do some big house stuff, which is more prevalent than I expected at the time of rating.
Okay.
So
I think for me, late game read for Renos and then mid game read for question mark, maybe a later room.
right, or Basket Maker's Workshop. But if you play Toad, people will try to nab the Basket Maker's Workshop. So it's a tricky balance
Maybe at your
sometimes.
ELO they will.
I don't know. Some people play spitefully for no apparent reason. So feed pellets, I'm simply too low on. Ryan's got it closer to the reality. I think it's really one of the best free miners. Giving you the sheep, giving you an ability to have one animal and a vegetable and turn that into a breeding pair immediately. So,
Right.
very good card.
Oh, you can just straight up change a vegetable to an animal.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought you had to harvest a vegetable and then you could turn it into an animal.
No.
I don't know why I thought that.
I mean, it's a lot of words on the card. It's easy to get lost. But yeah, no, you can go into the round 11 harvest with a cow and a vegetable and start breeding your cows.
Okay, I'm definitely underrating this card then.
Yeah. And I think I perpetually underrate the bonus sheep. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. Woodcart. I think I underrate it here.
Really?
Yeah, there is enough occupation playing support and big house support in the set to make Woodcart quite solid in a lot of ways. And what I mean by quite solid is its playability in the first two stages is way higher percentage of games than I realized at the time. So if you draft Woodcart, there's, I don't know, like 1 out of 3 games you can play it by like round 6 or 7.
Mm.
And if you can do that, well then I think it's pretty clear that that's a very good game plan.
Oh yeah, if you're building it that early, absolutely.
And I
guess
think
I
it's
just
worth
didn't.
stretching for that.
Yeah, the 2 extra wood is a lot. I guess I just didn't realize you'd be building it that early.
Yep. And I mean it's counterintuitive to think about that for some people. Some people have the mindset of, or like naturally have the mindset of, how can I abuse this to the best of my ability? And those people will realize how strong Woodcart can be a lot easier than maybe you or I could. I have to like see it used against me enough times to start believing in its playability like that.
It doesn't work with Porter though, right? It's not adding.
It doesn't help Porter get easier, no.
Okay.
Education bonus, I'm probably a little too low on. As the notes say, I'm pretty sure that Ryan or Chris wrote it, that if you just get the last 2 rewards off of education bonus for your 5th and 6th occupations, you've done nicely there. A vegetable in a field.
Yeah, I've definitely fallen for the trap.
Right. I mean, I think the grain is almost always a trap. Sometimes you'll have stuff like Lantern House and an early fireplace, and then you can maybe stretch a bit to get the grain off of education bonus. But yeah, even if you're just getting the vegetable in the field, that's great. A lot of times you're not going to have to stretch too hard to get the stone, the vegetable in the field. And I mean,
Right.
at the cost of a food, that's, pretty good.
Well, it's just like a much better shifting cultivation.
I don't know about much better. Like, it's clearly better, but the timing of when you play that 6th occupation versus
Yeah, the flexibility.
flexibility of shifting cultivation, exactly. And then where would I rate this? Probably 12 to 15, roughly.
Okay, quite a bit higher.
Yeah. Horse-drawn boat, also too low on. Should be rated higher. It is awkward to play. 3 occupations and 2 wood, and doesn't give you the immediate power of Woodcart, you could say. But
Yeah, because you gotta wait for your food and sheep.
right, but if you're getting the sheep breeding, let's say with Animal Tamer or Stable Master or something like that, and some extra food along the way, then horse-drawn boat, don't sleep on how much food this gives you throughout the game.
Yeah, well, I guess you could say it's like half a manservant.
Yeah, I mean, it literally is half a manservant if you have a cookery, and then if you're able to store these sheep early enough, well, it's 5/6 of a manservant if you're breeding the sheep.
Yep, I like it.
That's not true. It's no, that is true. Yeah, 3 per 2 rounds, 5 per 2 rounds of breeding. Yeah. And I guess I keep forgetting, where would I rate this now? Probably close to 20. Like Ryan has it, maybe a little better than that, but it is a bit awkward to play sometimes.
So it's taking the place of like Hutch and Chicken Coop.
Yes. I would rate this above Hutch and Chicken Coop for sure, just because the upside is like really clearly strong here.
Yep.
Writing desk, I think I probably did underrate it. The occupation support, as I've said already, stronger in CD than I realized at the time. Just a lot of good things to combo with playing more occupations, and food cost being less prohibitive in revised compared to original. So
yeah, so works really well with like patron bookshelf.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Patron bookshelf, bookcase. Education bonus is a lot easier when you have a writing desk, for example.
Yeah.
Bread paddle, this still works great. So let's say 17 roughly, 15 through 20, somewhere in there. So these were the things I was looking at when I was wondering if Granary, Hutch, Chicken Coop should be going down. It's really like this woodcart and bonus horse-drawn boat writing desk sequence and feed pellets. It's just like, yeah, these need to be higher.
And hunting trophy.
Yeah, hunting trophy.
Very awkward to use.
It's way more awkward than I thought it would be. It's just too awkward to have a boar. First, very similar reasons to why Truffle Slicer is harder to use well. Hunting Trophy's a lot harder to use well. So I think putting it in the 30s is pretty fair. I don't know if I'd go as low as 45. Because you could think of Hunting Trophy as giving you...
just a free point.
Yeah. If you're going to eat the boar anyway, so...
free point and maybe some wood if you actually... do Reno fence.
Right. And I think Hunting Trophy probably gets a bit better with the newer cards that are now on BGA. I think those have more boar injections. Or more common good ways to get boar early. So
it's actually not too many in A, B, C, D, right?
Right.
There's like Pig Breeder, Acorn Basket, and Stockman.
Yeah, if you want to count Stockman. Yeah, it's certainly not many. Supply boat. It's not bad where it is. You might have a case for wanting to bump it up a tiny bit. Wood to a point's a fine trade-off. Trading the food for grain when you take fishing is obviously a good trade-off. You never want to ignore that one. Because you can always turn the food or grain back into a food raw.
Yeah, and if you have a half a veggie for 3 food, it's
also the same fairness, right? The issue with supply boat is that you generally don't want to be taking fishing. So to boost up a space you don't really want to be taking is a bit questionable. But there are fun combos with it, like Steam Machine is really fun with supply boat, I think. Because you're... Yeah, so...
I see the combo.
Yeah.
Would work really well with Canoe, you would say?
I would not say that, in fact. Small greenhouse is fine. I think this is probably a good rating. Obviously, the payoff can be very solid and good. But I feel like the only time I'm really excited to play small greenhouse is when I have wood expert to make the cost 1 food instead of 2 wood. There are
Okay,
just
yes.
there are just many other good ways to get veggies in the set.
Do you prefer large or small?
Small, because how often are you getting that third vegetable on large? It's like
Yeah.
never out of 10. So,
But you don't have to pay for the veggie. I guess that's something you don't care about at all.
and the other thing is like I would happily pay for the veggies and get a point and have an easier prereq.
Yeah.
Large is 2 occupations, no point. So, but I think it's fine where it is. Same with sheep. Well, there's nothing wrong with converting the 2 stone to 2 points. If you can get like 2 to 4 food out of it, that's great. But playability is not super easy. There are a lot of good things you want to be spending stone on, like major improvements and renovation. So, are you sure that you didn't have another way to convert these 2 stone to 2 points? Is a question
Yeah, well,
I
it's,
think you should be
it's
asking.
basically a fair trade-off, and maybe you get some food out of it, but maybe not.
Right. So I think putting it like in an average spot is fair. Even though there's 54 miners and we're into the 30s, I think we're still in the average zone. There's a lot of very solid, good minor improvements in the set. I think we mentioned
Yeah.
that in the video too. Is that like, as opposed to base, this is just like a lot of playable stuff.
Yep.
Reed Pond, I was fairly low on compared to what I think it should be now. There's nothing wrong with getting 3 free reed in the mid or late game. Occasionally, early game.
Yeah, I've found myself wanting raid in late game situations quite often. This would be a good way to get it.
Right. So one reason I rated it low here is in the original version of the game, this came with a point and was a top tier miner. So
They took away the point.
They took away the point, and typically that brings cards down 2 tiers. So I just made that adjustment and moved on with my rankings without thinking about it too much.
You can still definitely make the case that every minor improvement above this one is better, though.
You could make the case. I'm not sure how strongly I believe it, but you could make that case. Yeah.
I think it's fair around the 30s, personally.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would want to put this a bit higher, but yeah, that's a good point. I don't know what I would bring below it to make space for it. Stork's Nest, I think we're all a little too low on here. You can have amazing Stork's Nest games, especially when growth comes late, because the prereq is actually, well, let me rephrase. It's a pretty high variance card because the times you're going to be wanting to have all this late growth is late, or all this growth is in late growth games with a bigger house. And taking time to play 5 occupations also hints at you not wanting early growth because you're playing occupations instead of taking room parts.
Right. The timing is what I find weird on this.
Oh, it's
Would you say
very tough to do.
Would you say if you're going for a stalk nest strategy that you're sort of gambling on late growth?
Yeah, you're gambling that it's not early growth, for sure. I think round 6 growth, there are plenty of good situations for it, but definitely strong when it's round 7 growth. The problem is you'll kind of need to commit to the 5 occupations before you know when growth flips. So it is really a gamble in that sense. But
Yeah,
the upside is so strong for late growth games that I think putting it closer to 25 or 30 is probably better. Just because that's how I've classified high variance stuff, is, put it higher in general.
I could definitely see it absolutely being a game-winning card, but
Right, and I don't like the idea of putting anything game-winning this low. Possibly game-winning this low.
that's fair.
Muckrake is fine. I think I probably have it rated a little too high here. It definitely has some good combos, like Stable Architect, obviously, or anytime you would want to have a Stable Architect, you're just as happy having a Muckrake.
Yep.
So to have an Occupation as a minor improvement, that's obviously a bonus value there.
So am I reading it right? If you have 3 unfenced stables and one of them is sheep, 1 boar, 1 cattle, then you get 3 points.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. So I think closer to 40 or 45 is probably correct for Muckrake. It just doesn't hit the table much.
Yeah, I don't see when I'd play it too often.
Right. Stonecart. I don't like it very much. There are definitely some good situations for it. Like if you can get Stone Carver or Wood Expert, then Stonecart becomes quite good, I think. But I do think it's situational to where you'll be wanting to play this miner once you get to 2 ox and have 2 wood lying around, compared to so many other choices.
Right, and then you're probably taking away from your first room or something.
Yeah, or second room, or fences. Yeah, taking wood away in the early and mid game does have so much opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do find Stonecart hard to rate. I'm tempted to say it should be lower. At least in my playstyle, it's lower because I just would rather be doing other things at the times where I might consider Stonecart. And maybe I have a small sample of whenever I see Stonecart in a draft in my hand, maybe I also saw a Roof Baluster or some other stone adders to the game, and I'm like, Stonecart is not a great stone adder compared to those, so...
Yeah, it does seem much weaker than what you just mentioned.
Right, and I think in the original version of the game, there was less stone injection, so Stonecart had a higher ceiling relative to the set. Farm Store, probably fine as is, rated in the mid or low 30s here. It's cool, there's a lot of cool things you can do. It's a vegetable source in a pinch, but the cost is pretty challenging most of the time, I think.
The cost is ridiculous for no point. I'll just say it. And it's making you pay a food for these resources. I don't see when I would ever play this.
Oh. Well, I mean, if it's your only source of vegetables, you can buy a vegetable once or twice in the late game. If it's... Oh, and then sometimes you'll be like, oh, well, I really wish I could have 1 extra clay and 1 extra reed right now.
I don't know. I would rather just actually go to vegetable spot.
That's
instead
not
of playing
a bad argument.
Instead of playing 2 wood and 2 clay and then a food as well, I'd just go to vegetable spot.
That's very fair. This is a card I would be curious to see stats on if I'm ever allowed to do some stats analysis again. It'd be cool to analyze Farm Store, at least just see its value. But
I think it would
you don't have a
definitely
bad argument there.
I think it would definitely trap a lot of newer players.
Oh, that's for sure. Yeah, anything with a cost this big, trying to play it early for quote-unquote max value is often wrong. Foreign aid, I think it's better than 38. Probably 28, 30, something like that. It does basically tell you that you need a big house and some ways to plow. But the 6 food boost early can do so many things. Not just like letting you sneak away with your feeding for a harvest when your opponents don't expect you to have feeding, but it can pay for stuff like early winter caretaker or early groceries or early clay carrier, stuff like that. There are enough opportunities to really snowball the value of that early food to where I think foreign aid should be considered in a lot of game plans, or a lot of drafts at least.
I can definitely justify it. I really don't like the idea of missing out on urgent wish and cultivation, though. But I guess if you are going to 5 rooms anyway, it's not as impactful.
Right, exactly. Uh, it's pretty hard to justify this on a 4-room game plan, and pretty much impossible to justify it on a 3-room game plan.
It is still another free miner, though.
Yes. So if you already have stuff like Wood Barterer and Reed Pond in your hand, and like Turn Rest Plow, 4 and 8's probably a good play.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and I just think those
Slightly
situations
higher.
to snowball the food are just frequent enough. Recycled brick, I like where it is. The timing of getting clay is pretty awkward most of the time, and you do kind of need to prioritize pottery for it to really be worth much.
Yep, I agree. Although you are getting a lot of clay in most games.
Yeah, you're basically maxing out your pottery if you get your pottery.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just need a place to throw away the clay. Schnaf's Distillery, I think I have rated a little too high here. I think it's worse than this. I think Chris and Ryan have a good gauge on its value being near like bottom 5 in the set. Most of the time, it's a trap.
Pretty much only good with Carrot Museum.
Yeah, or bookcase, or a strategy where you get to sow a bunch with clearing spade or something like that, because it is really hard to get that bonus point for your quote-unquote 5th and 6th vegetable, because it's actually your 6th and 7th vegetable, because you had to pay for Schnapps Distillery.
Yes.
Yeah, it misleads you on how many vegetables you need to get during the game. Definitely, there's nothing wrong with like a veg to 5 food conversion if you happen to have 2 stone lying around, but yeah,
it's just hard to use, so the low rating is fine.
Yeah. Straw Thatched Roof is fine here. Obviously, it has some really strong combos like Field Watchman or sometimes Thresher in the mid game or Seasonal Tiller. Make Straw Thatched Roof super strong, but those games are pretty rare. In my opinion.
How often would you say people are sort of baited by going for 3 grain fields just to save a bit of reed?
Oh, that's true too. Like, I see a lot of players get trapped by getting 3 grain fields in the ground before building. Though I've also seen that work with some high-rated players who really understand the value they're giving up by not contesting rooms early. If you can get a lot of the non-read room parts easily with your other cards, it can be worth setting up Straw Thatched Roof in a slightly long way. But I don't think you want to be doing any worse than, let's say, Thresher and Day Labor. Like, Thresher and an extra Day Labor action as the price to set up 3 grain fields.
Yep.
But I think overall the rating's fine. Steam Machine, way too low here. This extra bake action is super good in this set, in the arena set. Grain is plentiful. Accumulation spaces are plentiful enough. You can take a cow and bake.
Yes. Yeah, I like Steam Machine if you got an oven.
Right. And 2 wood is pricey, but it does give you a point back, so it's not like you're throwing the 2 wood away. So
the benefit is definitely worth 2 wood.
Yes, absolutely. So I don't know, like 20, maybe a bit better than that for Steam Machine. Definitely not this low. Very underrated.
Yep.
Let's see.
Feed Fence I find quite underrated here.
Really? How often are you building 4 stables naturally?
Okay, so the point you're making is if I have Feed Fence, I'm probably more inclined to build stables and it might be a trap.
Yeah.
That's true. I have found myself trying to build stables more often. I like feed fence for the extra food and then some potential wood discount.
Right, though you have to prepay a wood for the benefit.
Right.
So a really good combo with feed fence is furnisher. For example, because furnisher gives you at least 3 wood if you're furnishing feed fence. And it also lets you build stables at like a naturally, like immediately, I guess I would say, and put you perhaps from a position of needing to build a room and feed before worrying about growing, and just like take care of that feeding immediately. So I think there are some really neat tactical situations to play a good feed fence, but I think it can be a trap also.
Okay. I've definitely been trapped by it.
Trident, I think
Although,
I have too low. Oh, sorry, you want to go more on feed fence?
yeah, honestly, I thought it would be higher though. I was surprised to see it in the 40s.
Sure. I mean, I think part of that is that, there's a lot of good miners in the set.
That's true, yes.
Trident, I think I have too low. And I think I don't use it enough personally. I think I should play Trident more than I do. Yeah, wood to, even 3 food is okay, but like in the mid game for 4 and 5 food, when you're worried about growing, that's pretty awesome. So, passing it
True.
along doesn't usually hurt you too much, because if you get started on in round 12, that's not the end of the world. If you get started on in round 3, 6, or 9, you don't really care.
I have taken it, and I've always been hesitant to play it early because I don't want to pass it along.
Uh
But I think using it like at the end of round 12 is great for 1 wood for 6 food.
Oh, that's for sure good. But I also want to say that I think waiting for better food payout is a trap.
I can definitely see that. Yes.
Because would you rather have 4 food in round 6 or 6 food in round 12?
Okay, the early food is much better.
Right. As long as you know where the food's going. Obviously, if you have 20 food at both times, you'd rather have 6 in round 12.
Yeah.
Game trade, either find where it is or knock it down a couple pegs. It's neat, but I just never really feel the need to play it. It's easy enough to get the boar and the cow without throwing away 2 sheep.
Yeah, it's like much worse game catcher, is it?
Yeah. Yep. For sure. So putting this in the bottom 5 might make sense.
Yep, I'll agree.
Wildlife Reserve, maybe a little underrated here, but, barely being in the bottom 10 is probably fine. Oh, we haven't done Flail yet? Oh, boy. Yeah, I mean, there are enough neat situations to play Wildlife Reserve. Wood Expert comes to mind naturally. Even though the
Cow
capacity...
Prince.
Cow Prince, there's...
Does it count?
It currently does, but I think that might not stay. That might be changed. It's not completely clear. The rules are not quite clear enough. So it's in the process of being clarified. But with Wildlife Reserve, you can be building some stables plus Wildlife Reserve gives good breeding capacity.
Okay, before fencing, yeah.
Yeah. So if you have something to combine with the capacity from Wildlife Reserve, then it becomes good in my opinion, but that's kind of rare.
So it's good in those games where you build 1 stable early. 1 stable with your opening room.
Uh-huh. Yep, all the times you would do that.
It can be justified now.
Yes, if you grow with Wildlife Reserve, building 1 stable with your room is okay. I will agree with that. But why don't you just build 2 stables and not play Wildlife Reserve and play your reed pond or something?
Yeah, I guess the argument is it holds 3 stables worth of animals.
Right. but then you can't breed these types. Yeah. Stone clearing I have, I think, a little too low. It's playable enough in enough situations to where it can just be a food for 2 or 3 stone in the mid game. And I think when I visualize my game plan, I don't really keep track of when my fields are empty. And I think that led me to undervaluing the card.
I'm realizing just how much stone injection there is in this set.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's part of why big houses are strong in the set.
Right.
So yeah, more playable than I realized. So I think in the mid 30s is good. I think this 27 is probably a little too high.
Yep, I'll agree.
Flail, we've already talked about how useful baking can be, how prevalent baking strategies can show up based on bake actions. So Flail needs to be higher. There's just no way 48 is correct.
Even the wood for too early food is it's like a mushroom collector on Star Player.
I don't understand. Sorry, I'm not aiming this at you, but I don't understand people valuing that part of the card. Like, playing
if you're going to value 6 food from foreign aid, surely you value 2 food somewhat.
A little, but if I'm playing Flail, I'd better be getting like 3 bake actions from it. 2 or 3 bake actions from it. And compared to the 2 or 3 bake actions, that 2 food is like, do I really care much about it?
No, it's early game food.
It's a fringe benefit. It's an excuse for not having a point on it like Threshing Board has.
Yeah, okay. How much higher would you put it?
Right next to Steam Machine, probably.
In the 20s, roughly.
Yeah. Maybe a bit below it. Yeah, roughly 20. Yeah, I underestimated how often I would want to be baking. Obviously, if you have Potter Ceramics, you're just slamming every bake action card you can get. So
yeah.
Stable.
I don't think we need to say much about stable. It's just, yeah, it's okay.
Yep. This is a better excuse for building one stable with your room, growing with stable. Sculpture, I think it's fine here. It is kind of hard to play. The stone to 2 points is obviously like an extra point on top of usual stone value, so that's nice. But if you finish your farm and have an extra stone lying around, why do you have an extra stone lying around? It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Private Forest.
This one surprises me.
Yeah.
It's on the old beginner trap.
So in the original game, Private Forest didn't have an occupation prereq. So it had no prereq. And it was, decent to good. But the one occupation requirement here just means that you're going to have 0 food at the end of round 1, or 1 if you're lucky, if you play this in round 1. And you basically need some early food help to make Private Forest playable and justified.
But so, you can see the combo with Flail now.
The famous Flail.
You get your 2 food back.
Yeah. Right. Uh-huh. I'll keep that in mind,
okay.
Sam.
I definitely think I overrated this card a lot then.
Okay. I mean, if you have... Well, this is something the foreign aid food is perfect for helping Snowball. Like, Private Forest or Wood Expert are basically the same in a lot of ways if you get that early food boost. Yeah. Just being able to get extra wood with, enough food to not worry about it.
I guess I shouldn't be too surprised because it's just like Thick Forest, which is a pretty low-rated card, but thick forest is a bit more awkward to use.
Right. You're never going to be able to play Thick Forest in round 1. But you can play Private Forest in round 1.
Yeah.
But, you could argue that this is too low, but it can't be that much higher.
Yeah, given how strong everything else is, yeah.
Yeah. Milking Place I like here in the bottom 3. Animal capacity is worth a lot in the game, and grain can be converted in a lot of ways, mostly with the extra bake actions. So getting 1 food on harvest is just underwhelming for the grain.
Only good if someone's using Market Crier.
Yeah. And even then, you have to worry about the capacity issue, I think. Dwelling Mound is probably the true worst card in the set. It's difficult to play. It gives you 3 points and tells you that plowing is bad.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, obviously plowing's not bad. It's the opposite of bad.
3 points is not a high enough of a ceiling to be worthwhile.
Fair. This card existed in an original expansion and was worth 4 points. Otherwise the same.
I would want it to be 7 like Lantern House.
Whoa.
Then I would consider it.
I think 5 would be considerable in a lot of games. Not amazing, but considerable in a lot of games. 3 is hard to justify for sure.
I don't know if you've noticed, but I like my food.
That is a great quality to have. Food takes you places. Ravenous Hunger we all put as the worst, but I think Dwelling Mound's probably worse. So
I think they're all pretty situational at this point.
Yeah. Ravenous Hunger I was never a fan of, but it was shown to me that some big family games really love Ravenous Hunger. A great combo with Ravenous Hunger is Pet Lover.
Okay, yeah, you get breeding pair and 3 food and a grain.
Right. And you took a vegetable right before.
Yeah.
And the synergy there is not necessarily for Pet Lover and Ravenous Hunger, 1+1 being good. It's more like both of them are for big house strategies.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think just using it to get breeding pairs anyway would be average.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But, the grain cost is annoying for sure.
Yeah. Grain cost and having to use vegetable seeds.
Right. 2 awkward things. Okay. So that concludes our foray through my quote-unquote old rankings here.
So the main takeaway is that you'd rate Ravenous Hunger higher.
Yeah. Nothing else matters, for sure.